Good.
Hello, everybody. My name's Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hey, everybody.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer tips, insights, ideas, and examples for how small, emerging, and challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods, brands can build their business. Everything from determining if you're ready to grow, where to start, how to prove it online, how to go about securing distribution at a national retailer, driving your business through to the end consumer, and how to go about finding an investor if that's something you're ready for. The bottom line is Tracy and I have been doing this for a long time. We've made a lot of mistakes. We've done a couple of good things, but if we can help smooth out your journey on the road to retail, we'd love to do it. So we'd ask that if, please follow this podcast on iTunes or Spotify, leave us a review, and consider sharing the show with a friend or colleague that may benefit from the content. Tracy?
Absolutely. So as Bruce mentioned, we have 30 plus years of experience in commercial operations. What do we mean by commercial operations? We mean sales, marketing, trade marketing, divestitures, acquisitions, managing distributors, managing brokers, you name it. We've done a little bit of everything through our career. And as Bruce mentioned, done some good things. We've made some mistakes. And again, the purpose of this podcast is to share those key learnings with our audience so that you can avoid some of the things that we've done wrong and maybe do some of the things that we've done right. Also on our podcast from time to time, we have colleagues, friends, brand founders, service providers on our podcast. And today we have a good friend of mine. I'm excited to have her. Genevieve, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being on, and tell us a little bit about you and your background and how you got to Springdale Ventures.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here, and always happy to help founders try to succeed at retail. I definitely have been in their shoes, and now on the other side of the table, investing in those brands. So a little bit about my background. I've been in consumer products since the early 2000s. Had two different supplement companies. The first one was a B2B contract manufacturer export brand, where it was really a lifestyle business. We never raised capital, but we produced supplements and then sold them B2B over to Europe while I was living in Hawaii and India and doing all kinds of great things. And then moved back to the US, started another company called Herbal Zap, and it's an instantly dissolving Ayurvedic beverage. Ran that for a number of years, got it into a few thousand stores, and then ended up doing a small transaction with that. Exited the company and then went on to run a consumer products accelerator called SKU out of Austin. While I was there, really wanting to give back and help other founders avoid some of the potholes that I'd stepped in. And during the course of that experience, really saw that there was a lack of early stage strategic capital for consumer brands that were growing. I'd experienced the same thing when running my company. And, there's a lot of doctors and lawyers and tech investors that were out there wanting to invest in consumer brands, but not a lot of folks who had had operating experience. And so I met my co-founder in the fund, Dan Graham. He was on the board of SKU, and he was seeing the same thing. So in 2019, we set out to raise a fund, both classic entrepreneurs. We're like, how hard can it be? We can do this. But it was, we just set out to raise 20 million, ended up raising 27. So we did, raise a great first fund and invested in 30 brands out of that one. Consumer products, so everything across the board. So food, beverage, durable goods, anything you could bring into the home to make life better. And then we just closed our second fund. So we just closed on a $40 million fund and are investing out of that one right now. Again, same thesis. So seed to Series A, consumer brands, anything you bring in the house to make life better. It's led by a founder doing something transformational in whatever space they're in.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Genevieve, jumping right in your seat, especially given your experience both as a founder and then now as an investor with a couple of dozen investments under your belt, if I had a small brand that was maybe starting to get some traction, I'm starting to think of looking for some outside capital, what are some of the things, what's like that checklist of not the 100 things, unless you think there are, like what are the 5, 6, 3 biggest things that someone just has to have nailed down before they call up someone like you?
We're typically looking at brands that have a minimum of $1 million in 12 months trailing, maybe a bit more if you're in beverage. And, what we really look for are founders who really understand that they've found product market fit. They really have a passion for both the product and the business side. A lot of times we'll run into founders who, somehow have tripped their way into $1 million or $2 of sales and have very great passion for the product, but don't necessarily have super strong business acumen or the ability to build a team that can scale. So, we invest, that's still, I know on a founder's journey, it feels like once you get to $1 million or $2 million in sales, it feels like, it's a big milestone. It definitely is, but it's still really just the beginning. And so we're investing in founders, particularly. So you have to have good product market fit, good traction, great leadership, really strong margins or very clear path to strong margins, and a focused strategy. And I could keep going, but I'm just going to go ahead and stop right there.
There's a whole checklist, I'm sure, a very long
list.
Yeah.
That's good. So one other thing before I turn it to Tracy, Genevieve, and maybe you said this as you mix all those points together that you just said. What about product differentiation? So even if it's a good product, if it's a super crowded category, are you guys still juiced? Or are you like, Bruce, there are a lot of, skincare products?
Oh, yeah. I mean, no matter what category you're in, there absolutely has to be clear product differentiation. And some categories are like more challenging than others. Tracy will laugh at this one. Like if somebody comes to us with a bar product, I just automatically, I'm just like, I don't even want to see it. Don't even bring it to me. It's just such a complicated category and such a competitive category. But yeah, so absolutely have to have something that really makes it stand out.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Bruce and I talk all the time about you don't want to launch the 17th brand of gluten-free cookies. Same thing. You don't want to launch another nutrition bar. The world doesn't need another nutrition bar.
And it's tough too, because like a lot of times we'll see like a brand, for example, like Siete, that really was is a very strong challenger to the category. And then we'll see brands kind of coming up behind it that are doing something similar, but somewhat differentiated, but they're also still challenging the category. So it's like, we're not looking for challengers to challengers, so it's like, you kind of have, it's like 2 steps away from being the main challenging brand.
If you're going to be a challenger brand, what you're saying is you've got to have innovation and you have to have differentiation.
Innovation, differentiation, and great strategy of like how to get to market and how to stay in market.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about, talk to us a little bit about the type of financing that is available for brands. Let's just say in the $5 to $20 million brand, friends and family, angel, seed. So what kind of financing is available to that size of brand?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think obviously there's what we do, which is venture capital. And so we're looking for brands that have really high growth potential, who want to scale to be a big brand and can produce, really strong returns. A lot of times we'll bump into brands that, they have great potential. They're gonna return, they're gonna exit, but they may only return like at that stage, like 3x kind of what we invest. And we wouldn't be able to invest in that because we're looking for, at least a minimum of 10x, if not more, a return on our investment. But once they're at that stage, a lot of growth equity funds, they're not requiring quite as high of a return on capital. So maybe they're looking for a 3x their return on capital versus a 10x. So once you get a little bit bigger, you have more growth equity funds that might invest. If you're cash flowing and you have collateral, look at bank loans. That's a great option, non-dilutive. There's also venture debt, which is a little bit harder to come by these days, where it's a lower interest rate, and then they take a point or two of equity to have some of that upside within an exit. And then there's all kinds of private equity, whether it's family office that has private equity or more institutionalized. And then the only other one to really kind of think about is like a mezzanine debt. So it's really a little bit like a venture debt. So a mix of debt and equity.
So, Genevieve, can you just explain for the folks what mezzanine debt is?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not an expert. This is not an area that I play in, so you might want to have somebody to explain it better than I can. But it's a mix of debt and equity that typically sits on top of any equity, any other equity, or any other debt that's on the company. So they kind of have the first right for any any liquidations that happen.
Okay, thank you. So you may have answered this question when we went through your checklist of what you would recommend brands kind of have in their mind. But what do you think the people, your investors, are looking for? Similar, or do they just like trust your track record? And or I mean, how much input do these folks have when they, maybe press you and your other senior partners and say, "What are you seeing out there?"
Yeah, I mean, people invest in funds generally because they trust that the people doing the investing from the fund are experts in the space, and they don't they don't want to manage their own angel portfolio or have the risk of trying to make these investments on their own. So we tend to communicate, very at minimum quarterly with our investors with a really in-depth quarterly investor report. And then monthly, we send out a newsletter with all like portfolio highlights of what we're doing. So we don't really have, they're not in the weeds making decisions and looking at deals.
Right. Okay. But same thing. They're looking for, as you were saying, they're trusting you to look for products that are differentiated, not in a super crowded space. A charismatic founder that also probably he or she has a plan and some experience and knowledge versus, I think your phrase was, kind of tripped into a $1 or $2 million business, but is kind of just lucky. The blind squirrel finds the acorn, but they don't know what to do with it now.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Love the blind
Okay.
squirrel analogy.
Tracy?
Yeah. So I'm a brand founder. Talk to us a little bit about what should I look for in an investor? Do I
Yeah, great
want
question.
somebody that's just going to write me a check? Do I need somebody that's got, obviously, I think, some CPG experience? And is that experience in marketing, in distribution, in brand or product development? What should they really be, looking for?
Great question. I think first things first is that anybody that you take on as an investor, it's a long-term relationship. Many people liken it to a marriage. So it's like you really want to make sure that you have an alignment with these people, both an alignment on vision, strategy, and values. So it's, you don't want somebody on your cap table who's, going to be reaching out to you every quarter who you don't like. I mean, you don't have to love them, but you do at least have to, have some alignment. And investors need to support whatever the company's long-term goals are. Maybe it is more of a lifestyle business creation and they're looking for dividends, and great, or it's like, hey, I need a 20x out of this company. So just making sure that's there, first of all. And looking for value add beyond capital is, of course, very helpful. So looking for expertise where your company needs it. Like you'd asked, is it marketing, distribution, operations? It really depends on the founder and the team and where your weaknesses are. So, if you're a marketing expert, maybe you want to bring somebody on that has the right distribution connections or operations connections. So it's like, it's kind of, you can create a matrix for like where it is that there are gaps in the team, and like, how do we solve for that, whether it's through investors, or just bringing in, like you said, a check without any expectation or any value add. I mean, I'm a fan of value add investors, but sometimes, if you've got a plan, you've got a strategy, and the money that's aligned with it is not necessarily bringing any expertise, that's okay too. As long as there's alignment. And looking at track record, like recently we were looking at a beverage deal and it looked interesting, but the lead investor for this next round doesn't have a great, well, it's not they don't have a great track record, they just don't have a track record in taking brands to market and really kind of getting through an exit. It doesn't look like they've invested in a bunch of brands that have been successful. So even as another co-investor, we were like, maybe this isn't quite the right deal for us. So looking at those kind of things. Having investors with a good network is always very, very, very important, because whereas I might not have expertise in something, I know somebody who does. So I'll connect them to that person. Yeah. And then making sure that whoever you're bringing on is putting forward terms that are fair and that you understand.
Do you run into brands that don't understand the terms or understand what they're getting into, and that they're signing their house away?
It's complicated, and people, you don't know it until you've seen a bunch of it. And most founders just haven't, they're not investors, so they haven't seen these terms over and over. So,
well, or they've heard about a friend of theirs that goes to the same Starbucks that raised some money, and it's got to be easy if they could do it. And then, oops.
Yeah.
So going down the next step here, Genevieve, what should a company thinking of raising money know about the process? And I think you were just starting to go down that, what info would they need to have? What other things? We've talked about experience and a good plan to attract an investor. And then if you could also speak a little bit about, the communication out that the investors will expect. It's not like, hey, take my money and, once a year, send me a Christmas card with how it's going.
Yeah. A great point. I think the first thing that a company and founders should understand is really assess the need for capital. It's like, why are you going out to do this?
Right.
What is it exactly you're going to be doing with that investment? And determine the amount needed based on that. And that kind of ties back to, like, you really need a very strong business plan and strategy, which a lot of times you'll see companies, especially in the earlier stages, not, they'll have an idea and they're like, oh, I should raise $2 million. And so they'll just go out and be like, I'll raise $2 million. And even some of the more sophisticated companies, they'll kind of pick a number, and it won't necessarily be tied to exactly how they're going to apply it to drive that growth. We like to see how much you're going to raise. How are you going to apply that to what you have figured out helps to drive sales, and where is that going to get you? Like, we like to see that, super clearly. In addition to that, having a great pitch deck never hurts, because that's often very indicative. Pitch decks are often kind of indicative of how the company is run and just how they communicate. So if it's like a 100-page pitch deck of all text, or it's all only focused on the product and not necessarily the business side of things, that's telling. I think we typically, when we'll look at pitch decks, and then I like to get on with founders, and I don't want them to walk me through the pitch deck. I hate it, in fact. I'd rather look at the pitch deck and then have them tell me the story and have it be more kind of interactive. But I do like to see a good pitch deck. Like, that's really important. And then having, and really having an understanding of what the due diligence materials are that investors would like to see, and put that together in a data room, whether that's, your legal documents, your contracts, the IP, POs, testimony, there's a whole list of things we have. And you can, any founder pretty readily online can go and see, hey, what should be in a data room? And then just proactively put that together. That speaks volumes as well to an investor. On the communication side, I think some of the best performing companies in our portfolio are the ones who communicate the best, because it's a forcing function for, really showing that you understand your business, where you're going, like, every month, like, okay, here's where we are, this is what we accomplished, this is where we hit road bumps, and this is what we need. We love monthly kind of updates. Some of our best companies, again, they provide like comprehensive quarterly updates, and that's fine too. If we're more involved in the company, we'll dive in, every month and ask for like a monthly update. But good communication can't be, it's one of the most important things, I think.
So Genevieve, one kind of follow-up point here. So I realize the answer might be, it depends, but I'm going to go for it anyway. In your experience, what do you think the optimal length of a pitch deck is? in frame of reference, when Tracy and I talk to retailers and they consider taking on a new item, we heard over and over and over, like the optimal length of this presentation should be 15 pages. They don't want the 200 page where you just want to put a knitting needle through your eye after page 24.
Yeah, 12 to 15 pages is what I would say.
Yeah. Perfect.
And then you can have a more detailed deck that's more for on the diligence side, but it's almost always like the kind of diligence we do for the earlier stage companies. It's like we like to look at Excel spreadsheets. Like we don't want that in a PowerPoint. We sometimes look at PDFs and PowerPoints with numbers in them. We're just like, please just give us the spreadsheets. But depending on what the brand is and kind of what the IP and the differentiation, like a good pitch deck, a follow-up addendum can be complicated, and that's fine. But like for a pitch deck, like 12 to 15 max.
Great, thank you.
One question I had, so again, relating this to like retail buyers, and when we talk to buyers, they talk about, knowing what you're doing and being needy. So you said communication is really important. Is there a fine line though between being a good communicator and being needy? Like calling every week, hey Genevieve, what do I do about this? Or, is there a fine line?
I imagine so. I was trying to think. I don't think anybody in our portfolio is like needy. No. I think I could see how that could be a thing as well.
Right. Yeah. I just was relating it to the buyers that we talk to, like you're calling every day. Oh, I don't know how to fill out this new item form.
Oh, yeah, no, that would be crazy.
Or what I don't know what FOB is. Can you tell me what that is? Those kinds of things. So
for sure.
You're lucky you don't have anybody like that. So that's good.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's, that's a good point though for founders too. It's like, if it's something that you can Google or that you can ask another founder about before asking either your retailer or your, the investor, do that. It's like, and especially with a retailer, us, it's different because like we're here to help. We want to help, we'll do what we can. But like with the retailer, it's like, you want to save your social capital for them when you really
Absolutely. So on that, so tell us maybe the top three, because I'm sure there's been a lot of mistakes you have seen founders make when, approaching a potential investor.
I think one of the things that I see a lot still is founders, like you have 20 minutes with an investor, for example, and you spend 15 of those minutes talking about the product and not the business. So it's like the product is great for this reason and this reason, and this is, explaining what the market is. And, generally it's like, it's good to have a slide that kind of encapsulates what the total addressable market is and kind of what the demand is. But if an investor's talking to you, they probably already understand that and can look at that on their own. So I'd say, really focusing on the business, how you're going to scale the business, and then how you're going to return capital to investors. I think a lot of founders we talk to, that's not something that they even ever bring up. It's like, hey, this is the long-term plan for the business. This is how we, how many years we're planning on running it. This is our end game. This is how we think you're going to get your money back. We don't hear that as often as we should, honestly. I think another thing is just being unprepared with like a really clear business plan. It's similar, I guess it's very similar to what I was just saying, the steps that you'll take to be able to get to scale. Sometimes we also see with really early founders, if it's their first fundraise, just having unrealistic expectations on the value of the company, just really overvaluing it. The market really has some pretty standard things that it dictates, and there's exceptions to that rule, but there's very few exceptions to the rule.
Interesting. I love the part about not communicating and being sensitive to the fact that, people are investing money because eventually not only do they want it back, they want more than they gave you.
Right.
And, they might not want to wait till their great grandchildren graduate from high school. They want it sooner than that. So let's go down here a little bit more. So can you let us know what's the best approach to raising money that you've seen a small company do? Has anyone come at it like really different or uniquely, and you're like, wow, that was interesting. We don't see that often. Usually it's the badger you with emails or phone calls, corner you at your coffee shop, and
Yeah, no,
Thank
that's
you.
a good question. I don't know that we've had anybody that's super like unique per se. But I would say that what really works is like good follow-up. Like if somebody sends you an email the day after you meet with them, kind of saying, hey, I really enjoyed the conversation for these reasons. I think you could be a good partner for these reasons. Like just having that good, consistent follow-up and really understanding. I think this is a true for all fundraising, is like really understanding who you're talking to and what they're looking for and speaking to that. Is
And
really
is it helpful if someone is given a warm introduction to you, someone that you trust, or do you just sort of disregard that because you've been doing this long enough, you've got your own filter, and that's not necessarily helpful to you?
yeah, no, definitely depending on who the intro is coming from it and what they say in the intro, it can speak volumes and get a closer look faster sometimes.
All
we
right.
you know we're very open to looking at all deals that come across the table because some people just don't have the networks built in to be able to get those warm intros, and so we want to be fair and mindful about that. But it's certainly like if another VC is co-investing that we trust and like to co-invest with, then obviously we're going to look at that quicker, deeper, maybe.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Genevieve, I just wanted to recap your last when we were talking about what investors are looking for. I think what I heard is don't spend a lot of time on the product we can read. And then also it's really the big important things are the brand story. And I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I think the brand story is what
Yeah.
I heard. And two is the founder, right? That founder as a person. And then what they're missing is what's in it for me, right?
Yeah, I think, really showing the passion for the brand, the story for the brand, being able to speak to how the founder is unique and going to be able to build the team and how they're approaching the business. What is it, how showing that they can be a good leader, a good CEO up to whatever point it is that they are. Yeah, absolutely. All those things.
We talk about we call them bumper stickers, Bruce and I, and one of the bumper stickers we have is my baby's beautiful. So every founder you talk to, I'm sure, thinks their baby is beautiful
Of
and
course.
can't understand why I sell out every Saturday at the farmers market, why this wouldn't be a great fit for, Whole Foods and Sprouts.
Yep,
You see a lot
absolutely.
of that?
Absolutely.
I would think so. So tell us maybe something, the biggest mistake you've seen a small company make when taking on an investor.
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I mean, it comes back to that alignment. It's just not being aligned with either like the strategy or or not understanding the terms. I think those are kind of the two biggest mistakes that I've seen.
Okay. Yeah.
So, hey, Genevieve, one question, looking at your very impressive portfolio, out of curiosity, are there, without, getting too specific, are there any categories that just give you pause right away? Like, I'm going to make something up. I do frozen X just because, getting on the shelf is already hard. Getting into a refrigerator or freezer is even harder. Are there a couple of things where you're like, ooh, antenna up. I'm already on alert that this might not be for us?
Um, I'm sure, yes, there are. I mean, one of the categories, and we have several, or I guess maybe, I don't know, yeah, we have one or two. Beverage. Beverage is so hard. I mean, it's a great category to invest in if you hit it right. It's very binary. It's either you kind of hit it big or it goes fizzles out. So I'm cautious with beverage. I still like the category. Um, Especially non-alc, like the sodas of the world. We see it just a ton of the adaptogenic sodas and whatnot. And I like them. I think there's a lot of opportunity, but it's just it's a very hard one to discern. And I generally think that's why we usually invest a little bit later if we're looking at beverage.
And when you say beverage, are you talking like anything that's a liquid, or these like functional beverages, or like the 9th craft beer or the 15th, handcrafted vodka, all made in Austin, of course?
Right, of course. I'd say, I mean, in particular, like I'm in my mind, I was just thinking like non-alc, ready to drink beverage.
Right. Okay.
But also, I mean, like we have Beatbox in the portfolio, Nectar, hard seltzers, and so those categories are super tough as well. But both of those brands are doing something super innovative within the category. So if it's really innovative and they already have proven customer stickiness and like good distribution and margins, then we'll look. I mean, we look all the time, and I love talking to those founders. But I'm just feel like on the non-alc beverage, ready to drink in particular, I feel like we're a little slower to invest.
So kind of a off the wall question, as Tracy and I joke, this is live TV. Something you just said popped into my mind. Would you consider getting behind a foreign brand that wants to come to the US, or is that just a little too far for you?
That's probably not our wheelhouse. We've seen a few. Actually, we're looking at one a little bit right now, but they already have decent traction in the US. So that's, I guess, what we would look for is like, okay, what does their presence look like overseas? How much progress have they made, in the US? So it's kind of the same thing. Like, even if they have $20 million sales in the UK, like, what is their traction in the US? What is their product market fit in the US? So that's how we would look at it.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Tracy, unless you have anything else, I'm going to ask Genevieve how people can get in touch with her.
I do. I just have one thing that I want to say that just popped in my head when you talked about beverages. We also talked about nutrition bars, probably another category. Your antenna goes up like, no, don't think so. But lately, everybody wants to be the next Olipop. True or false?
True. And Olipop and Poppy both are just crushing it. And I would have loved to have invested in those, but Olipop was, it was too far along by the time that they were raising, and we were set up for that. And Poppy, well, I think they were already under the Kavu umbrella at that point.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, Bruce.
No, thank you. It's always cool to hear what's hot from the people that are writing checks and seeing. I mean, you must see tons of stuff cross your desk, and some you scratch your head and go, what the hell? And others you're like, I need to learn more. But that's what makes it fun, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
All right. So Genevieve, thank you so much for coming on the show today. If anyone wanted to reach out and, talk to you about their nutrition bar or their beverage, what's the best way to get in touch with you to either learn more or show you something?
Yeah, we have a hello@springdaleventures.com is the email you can reach our team at. You can link in with me on LinkedIn. And then we also have online, we have a submission form on our website. So if you're interested in pitching us, that's the best place to go and submit, because you can put in all your information and submit your pitch deck and everything online at springdaleventures.com.
All right. Well, thank you. Okay, Tracy, the big finish.
Absolutely. Well, Genevieve, thank you so much for coming on. It was certainly a pleasure. Great insight and information on raising money, and we just so appreciate that, and would encourage our audience to follow us on our Spotify channel, on iTunes, Road to Retail, also on LinkedIn, and look for this episode in the near future with Genevieve.
All right. Thanks. Good luck out there, folks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.